I'm walking along and a guy comes along and talks to me by the name of Max Halo. Who the heck is this guy?
Angelo Dundee walked the corners of boxing history. With his sharp nerves, steely gaze, and the calm wisdom of a veteran, he guided fighters like Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard through some of the most dramatic moments in the sport. For decades, his name was synonymous with greatness, ringcraft, and poise under pressure. And yet, behind the gloved fists and roaring crowds, there was another side to Angelo. His judgments, his quiet passions, his admiration for certain fighters who dared to be more than just boxers.
Sounds like that.
With his fight with...
Imagine him years later, sitting back, looking at his life's work, and naming the 10 fighters he most admired, the 10 whose skill, heart, discipline, and character stuck in his memory. This is the story of those 10 boxers, as told in the language of respect, reflection, and boxing's brutal poetry.
And I'm so grateful to 24/7 for what they're doing pre-fight.
1. Muhammad Ali. From the moment Angelo took young Cassius Clay under his wing in 1960, he saw something extraordinary. He had reflexes that belonged to someone half his size, Angelo once said, and the heart of a giant. Ali became the linchpin of Angelo's legacy, the gloved poet, the boxing philosopher, the great entertainer. Angelo respected him not only for his speed and ring IQ, but for his fearlessness outside the ring, the way he stood by his convictions, for good or for bad. In the locker room before the 1964 fight against Sonny Liston, when Ali's eyes stung and he feared quitting, Angelo dug in. He washed Ali's eyes, urged him to run, to endure, to believe. Ali went out and won. The moment forged their bond forever. Angelo said the best part of Ali was that he made boxing transcendent. 2. Sugar Ray Leonard. Next on Angelo's list, Sugar Ray Leonard. Angelo had a deep admiration for Leonard's artistry. After years of guiding heavyweights and middleweights,
down around his knee.
And every time the ring.
Leonard introduced a fluid, dazzling movement to the ring. The kind of fighter who could dance like a featherweight, yet punch like a welterweight. Angelo praised him for his technical intelligence. He once said, "Ray had the combinations, the speed, and above all, the heart when the lights were brightest." The 1981 The Showdown fight against Thomas Hearns stands as Angelo's masterpiece in the corner. With Leonard behind on scorecards, 3. Luis Rodriguez. Not always the most famous name, but for Angelo, one of the most quietly impressive.
Do you think that he can how can he handle Cutter's punch? Would you think that's going to be a factor in the fight?
It's a big factor, and also...
Luis Rodriguez, often spelled Rodriguez, was a welterweight who lacked the flashy reputation of some stars, but Angelo admired his craft deeply. He called Luis the fastest hands I ever saw in that gym. According to Angelo, everyone thinks Ray or Ali had the quickest hands, but Luis could jab, rip, and counter in a blur. Rodriguez came from Cuba, brought an old-world boxing sensibility, and Angelo valued that. In his corner, Angelo emphasized fundamentals: footwork, the jab, ringcraft. Luis embodied them. When Angelo spoke of him, there was no fanfare, just respect. 4. Willie Pastrano. Another name from Angelo's early years, Willie Pastrano often gets overlooked in boxing history, but Angelo held him in high regard.
Downs has worn himself out against Pastrano.
Pastrano was light in punch compared to some contemporaries, but Angelo respected his movement, his smart defense, his ring survival skills. He didn't hit like a hammer, Angelo said, but he danced like a breeze and outthought his opponents. In the early 1960s, Angelo worked with Pastrano and saw the way Pastrano navigated danger, how he used ring intelligence rather than brute power. Angelo taught him the jab, taught him patience. To Angelo, Pastrano was proof that boxing wasn't just about who punched hardest. 5. Jimmy Ellis. Yet another less celebrated name in popular culture, Jimmy Ellis nonetheless earned Angelo's admiration.
Joe Frazier, Ellis is letting the fight slip away.
Angelo was both trainer and manager for Ellis in a period walking a complex relationship. Ellis, a former heavyweight champion, fought Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, men in their primes. Angelo respected Ellis for his heart and for carrying himself in the heavyweight division when the glare of the public was intense. Angelo once reflected on his time with Ellis. "Working with Jimmy gave me a taste of what true pressure feels like. The heavyweight division, the expectations, the shadows of the giants." Ellis might not have always had the legendary wins, but Angelo admired the loyalty, the resilience, the attempt to stand tall in the ring when the odds were stacked. 6. Jose Napoles. Stepping down in weight, Angelo's choice of Jose Napoles shows the breadth of his tastes. Napoles, a Cuban-born welterweight, became known for his smooth rhythm, his footwork, and his sophisticated boxing style. Angelo admired the elegance. He once said, "Jose moved like jazz. His feet, his hands, they were always in time." In an era where brutal knockouts often stole the headlines, Napoles brought grace. 7. Pinklon Thomas. Now turning to heavyweights again, Angelo's list includes Pinklon Thomas, a fighter whose career had brilliance but was cut short by circumstances. Thomas, at his peak, carried fearsome power, and Angelo recognized that. Pinklon could whack, Angelo admitted in interviews, but he also saw the potential for greatness that didn't fully materialize. That's where his admiration lies. Angelo trained Thomas in his corner for some key bouts and was invested emotionally in the fighter's success. When Thomas faced Mike Tyson in 1987 and lost, Angelo felt the weight of what might have been. Yet he still included Thomas among his favorites. Why? Because Thomas had the talent, the hunger, the stage. For Angelo, potential redeemed is still worthy of respect. 8. George Foreman. Few names loom larger in boxing than George Foreman, and Angelo's relationship with Foreman was complex. Angelo often cornered Foreman in his comeback years, and though Foreman had his doubts early in his career, Angelo respected the transformation. The young Foreman was a powerhouse of the 70s, explosive, dangerous, proud. Angelo recognized that danger and harnessed it in the corner. 9. Willie Pastrano. While I already included Pastrano as number 4, Angelo's affection for him was strong enough to warrant a second mention in spirit. Here we provide additional depth to his place in Angelo's heart. Pastrano's style, his intelligence, his survival in a heavyweight-dominated era as a light heavyweight made him special. Angelo often told younger fighters, "Watch Willie Pastrano." 10. Carmen Basilio. Completing the list is Carmen Basilio, a fighter from an earlier generation whose grit and will made an impression on Angelo. Before the flashy era of Ali and Leonard, Basilio embodied the warrior spirit. Workmanlike, tough, relentless. Angelo worked in the corners of fights involving Basilio early in his career and learned from Basilio's example. Basilio wasn't the biggest, the fastest, or the flashiest, but he made up for it with heart. He took hard fights, he stood firm, he earned his victories. Angelo believed that fighters like Basilio were the foundation of boxing's tradition. When Angelo later looked back on his favorites, Basilio's inclusion was a nod to that foundation, the roots from which the sport grew. He picked them because they embodied something deeper. These 10 men, Ali, Leonard, Rodriguez, Pastrano, Ellis, Napoles, Thomas, Foreman, Pastrano, in spirit again, and Basilio, are Angelo's personal gallery, the photographs in his mind.
1953, and it's funny, I walked in
That was in
ring.
Syracuse, New York,
That was in
wasn't it?
Syracuse,
That's
right.
your hometown,
My
Savannah.
hometown, right. But they imported the judge and a referee from New York to protect him. And
The fighters who stirred him, taught him, challenged him, changed him. Boxing is violence. But under Angelo's watchful eye, it became something more, a mirror to human will. These favorites weren't just fighters, they were reflections of his values. And in remembering them, we remember Angelo's legacy too, the cornerman who turned hope into fight, who turned fight into art. Because in the end, Angelo Dundee didn't just train champions, he remembered them.